everyone, welcome back for part 10. When I bought this piece of junk, I didn't expect there to be a part 10, but here we are. I feel like I'm only maybe halfway through the series. So I got my big box of stereo stuff, and it's pretty exciting. As someone growing up in the 90s, I just got my license in, about 94? So in like 93, I had my permit, and I got my first car. It was a $25 Dodge Omni that didn't run. We had to get it running. My dad did most of the actual work on getting it running. I, of course, started putting in the stereo, and from that moment through my teens and early 20s, I was just obsessed with car stereos. So it totally dropped off. Modern cars started coming with better stereos, so it was just good enough for me. Getting this box of stuff kind of like brought back memories of the 90s when it was like a big part of my life. So here's a name that used to mean something. I don't think it does anymore. MB Quart got bought out by some conglomerate. But anyway, yeah, I think these were, I don't remember how much they were. Price right here. But back in the day, MB Quart was like, whew, you had some money if you had MB Quarts in your car. Also got a cheap Alpine Bluetooth. Again, if you had Alpine, you had money. Or more likely, if you had an Alpine, your parents had money. I always had Pioneers, because that's what Best Buy had cheap. Yeah, and this is like 120 bucks now. So it's kind of unreal what's happened to stereo prices in the last 20 years. I also made up some 6x9 rings out of some scrap plastic I had. It's nothing fancy, it'll just hold them, give me something to attach to the car. I've got the door speaker adapters, which I'm not going to mess with today. Got some various install kit stuff, and I already pre-made up my harness on my brake at work the other day. And I got my Metra access thing to make the steering wheel controls work. So that's basically everything in my big box. All you're really going to see today are the 6x9s, because I'm going to put the 6x9s in and get those rear plastic panels back up and installed because they're really in my way. No more blabbing, let's get to it. Briefly explaining what I just did here. I used some rope caulk that you can get at any hardware store to make sure this wouldn't rattle. I attached it with some skateboard truck mounting hardware. I wrapped it in some butyl flashing tape that you would use for, like, if you installed a entry door at your house, you might put it along the threshold at the bottom. And I just basically did that just to seal up the holes around the edge and might just help a little bit with the sound. Then I put it in, realized I had a little bit of a depth problem, so I'll get the other side put together off camera. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of thinking to see if I have the depth, I can just space it out a little bit, because I only need like 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch. I mean, that sure seems like a ton of depth to me, but apparently those have a little bit bigger magnets than I thought. So that's where I'm at. And if you were wondering on a smell update, it still stinks in here. I don't know why, but it's pissing me off. Alright, so my inelegant fix, since I had plenty of length on these screws, I just put a little, I think like a 1/4 inch or 5/16 nut in there just to space it out a little bit. Retaped my gaps, put the speakers in. It seems to fit. I don't see a bulge on the outside of the car, so I think we're okay. So I'm going to do a little more investigating and see if I can find any mouse nest inside these side panels before I close them up for good. And the last thing I'm going to do before I put these on, remember I mentioned before, stick on some carpet to keep the rattles down, and also I'm going to wipe down all of this, hopefully kill some smells and just get all the dust and dirt off. So back to time lapse. Look at that, I made some progress. Glad to know, even though I had to space out my speaker, I still have plenty of clearance here. My magnet is touching the outside of the car, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to space it out a little more, but it'll do for now. I also sprayed the special cleaner for pet odors. Since I couldn't get between that thin section in the back, between the two layers of metal, I just sort of sprayed a bunch down there so it could just kind of run down. If there is any mouse nests down there, hopefully that'll kind of soak into it and neutralize the odors at least, because I can't get to it. I can't see anything. If there is something down there, I don't know how I'd get to it other than like maybe someday I'll replace the quarter panel and I'll cut it open and it'll all fall out. But that's basically it for this side. I'm gonna do the same thing on that side. God, and then I can finally actually get the floor all cleaned up. It's not too late, so I think I can still get quite a bit done today. Well, there's the Blazer. Got the upper side panels back on, so they're out of my way. I think technically those are supposed to go on after the lowers, but whatever. They were just in my way. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try to put the heater core in. So a word on the heater core. These two studs you see sticking out here, these are captive. Like they have, this washer is actually a part of the fastener. So when I was underneath in a couple videos ago complaining about how terrible it was to remove those two bolts to get the heater core box off, it looks like they turned a little bit maybe, and then basically the nut just stopped and it just spun the stud out of the box. Now my hope was that I could just pull those studs out and then remove the nut on the bench, screw this back into the heater box, and then slide it back in. But now I know those are kind of stuck. So if I'm gonna go underneath the car and remove these, I'm gonna have to have something holding this. And then that little charade I was doing the other day with the wrench going one little 16th of a turn at a time, I'm gonna have to do that again. But instead of just far enough to get these coarse threads out of the heater box, I'm gonna have to do that all the way the length of that bolt. I don't know, I might just have to put it back on the way it is and just tighten them from the backside like I did before. Not excited about it, but I don't know what else to do. But I think I'm ready for the heater box. Well, there you have it. Carpet's back in. Front's not quite set down yet. I still have to put the vents under the carpet, and I just hosed those out, so I gotta let those dry. When I bumped them on the ground, a whole pile of mouse turds fell out, so apparently the mice have been running through the rear heat vents. Now yeah, carpet's still a little damp. It will just dry on its own. Figured better in here than sitting on the floor in the shop where people will be walking on it. Heater core went back in fairly smoothly. I did reattach those two evil bolts underneath the car. The secret was to have a 10mm gear wrench, like a ratcheting box wrench. I didn't have one here when I took it out, but I brought one from home this time, and that made it so much easier. So that's in. It should be all set. It's all a little ridiculous for a winter car, I get it. But it doesn't smell anymore. Hey, welcome back for a rare 2-day and 1 weekend video update. So I was editing the footage from yesterday and realized that I basically had an entire video just from 1 day of work because I did so much yesterday. So I decided to stop out real quick today. I'm gonna try to get this carpet in and then I guess we can get this video up. So that'll be like 2 in a week. That might be a record. Here we go. Alright, well I guess that's going to be it for this video. I didn't expect to get an entire video's worth of footage in just 1 weekend, but I really busted out. So carpet's in, side panels are starting to go back in. I'd have more, but I had to do some cleaning, as you saw from the time lapse. A whole bunch of adhesive that I finally just gave up on. Where do you see this side panel? This is the spare tire cover, or I guess the jack and lug wrench cover. Look at this adhesive. I'm not even trying. Talk about overkill. So yeah, I'm gonna let this continue to dry. It's still a little bit damp. I'll be back out next week and we'll make some progress. Thanks for hanging out. I guess we'll see you in the next video. See ya.